Hello, friends, benders and non-benders alike. Welcome to Braving the Elements, Nickelodeon's podcast about all things Avatarverse. I'm Janet Varney.
And I'm Dante Basco. And Varney, we have another stellar episode for everyone this week. And it's kind of a coincidence it worked out this way because last week's episode was actually kind of a perfect precursor to this week's guest.
Yeah, that's actually really true. You could absolutely say that. The timing sort of just worked out this way. But last week, of course, we covered The Painted Lady with the amazing Faith Erin Hicks, the writer behind graphic novels like The Imbalanced Trilogy, Toph's Metal Bending Academy, and most recently, Azula in the Spirit Temple.
And today we're bringing you two other incredibly awesome figures in the literary realm of the Avatarverse because we weren't intimidated enough from just having Faith on the podcast, Varney, you know?
That's right, buddy. We thought we would double down this week and just bring you the mind and talent behind the Kyoshi and Yangchen Avatar novels and the fantastic narrator who brought these stories to life in the audiobooks. Everyone, please welcome author F.C. Yee and Nancy Wu. Guys,
hey,
thank you.
Thank you
Welcome
for
to
having
Braving the Elements,
us.
you guys.
Super excited.
I'm so excited to get into the books. We love the shows, but we're beyond the shows now, and we're literary. We're literary folks now, not just animation folks. We're literary.
Them.
Moving to different mediums.
Exactly.
That's right. Oh, I'm going to quickly point out, too, F.C. Yee is the name that you will see on the books, but Christian is who we will be referring to on the podcast because that is the name that we're using for you in conversation. Is that fair to say, Christian?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Do you use Christian
what does
on
FC
cons
mean?
and panels?
FC is actually my legal name. It's F Christian E.
It's like F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Like that. I
Ooh.
don't think. Yeah, I'm not
Ooh.
sure if that was specifically in mind.
Your parents knew
That sounds
something.
great.
You were going to be a writer. They knew it.
Maybe.
That's right.
I don't
That's
even
what
know what
the
F
F stands for
for.
writer.
I've known you for 7 years.
For writer. Yeah.
Oh man, this writer's a genius.
We met each other with your very first book. I actually was cast to do Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo, just
Yep.
randomly. And we didn't know each other for that book or the second one either, probably.
You got cast for the book, and then we happened to be in Boulder at the same time, living in Boulder at the same time, and then we met, and then we
Beautiful.
became friends there. Nancy has been my audiobook narrator throughout my entire career, and after she got cast for my first book, we met up because we coincidentally lived in the same town, and then hung out and became friends after that.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
she's narrated all of my books ever since.
I mean, he told me he was writing this new one on Avatar, but I actually had to audition for it. So hopefully it wasn't just, oh, let's have her. But I mean, it's one of the most incredible author narrator relationships I have. And we've become really close and stuff. I just visited him last year in Seattle. We had Thanksgiving together. So when we were trekking through to Vancouver, I know. So
And yet you still had to audition. That's how it works. That's
you know,
a
it
business,
was
everybody.
early. It was early in the day. I know.
But you got the
Yeah.
gig. But you
But I
got the
did.
gig.
You did.
So that made me feel happy about that.
Did I also
the-
hear you say that you met for first time in Boulder?
Yeah.
Colorado.
Because
Neither of us are
that's
there
like
anymore.
the most perfect earthbending. I mean, there's literally a character called
Yeah,
Boulder.
yeah, it
and
was.
So
Yeah, it's true.
You really picked it. You
guys met in
the
Earth
only thing would be
Kingdom.
better is if you were like, remember how we met in Air Temple Island?
Yeah.
Remember
Imagine if
how
we started
that
with a
real
different
place
avatar.
exists in the world and it was totally random. We just met. I love that you met in Boulder. That's a beautiful, unplanned, perfect Avatar city to meet. I love it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, friends, there is so much to talk about, but we wanted to make sure that first we give a quick description for anyone who may not know. We don't want you to feel excluded if you're not familiar with the books that we're referring to. So, Christian, along with some guidance and prep from one of our dads, Mike DiMartino, crafted the stories of Avatar Kyoshi, whom we all know from the television series and beyond. And those are The Rise of Kyoshi and The Shadow of Kyoshi. And then there's also the Dawn of Yangchen and the Legacy of Yangchen, who is an avatar we don't really hear about in the series. We don't have to get into too much detail, Christian, but just for context, can you tell us a little bit about Yangchen and kind of where she fits into the Avatar cycle?
Yes, she is the last avatar that Aang talks to in the original series when seeking advice on how to deal with his problems with the Fire Lord. I obviously there are avatars before in their cycle, but I've always thought of her as kind of like the progenitor of the conditions that lead up to Aang's and Korra's timelines and and the challenges that they face as well. So she kind of represents almost like a matriarchal figure for all the avatars that came after her. But at the same time, she's a teenager when we see her story, and she definitely has learnings to go through and growth to go through and problems of her own to face. That's the insight that the Dawn and Legacy of Yangchen books kind of grant is what did kind of like the first person in this section of the line go through.
Before we dive too much more deeply into the Avatarverse, we'd love for each of you to tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll eventually land on how you became connected to Avatar. Christian, you're an East Coaster, right, who eventually landed in the Bay Area.
Yeah. I moved out to the West Coast. Started writing as a side thing, while working in tech and games. My first novel, The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo, is very much a kind of like a complicated love letter to the Bay Area. That was picked up by Abrams Publishing, and then while I was engaged with Abrams on that, the genius minds at Abrams, the publisher Andrew Smith, my editor Ann Heltzel, worked on this project. I think Abrams had already had a working relationship with Avatar brand through other merchandise, but then one day at a con, I was asked, "Hey, like, are you a fan of Avatar?" by my publisher, and I thought to myself, like, don't panic. That could mean a lot of things, not necessarily what
It could mean a lot of things.
You're not necessarily what the conclusion you're jumping to. So I just kind of was like, yeah. And then what ended up happening, and this is the origin story of the book franchise, is that afterwards I was told that Abrams had reached out to Nickelodeon to do a proposal for a book, an Avatar Kyoshi book, and they said, we got somebody who might be a good fit. And of course I said yes. Who would say no to that? So that's how it got started, and that's kind of like my path into writing, and then the Avatar universe.
I can't imagine what that must have felt like to know, like, even though it's all good stuff, it's sort of like the positive version of being gossiped about. Like, the idea that it wouldn't get to you until it was really time for you to know about it. But that means that there were all these conversations happening about, the Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo, about your style as a writer, how that might be a good fit. And so I don't know, if I were you, I would have kind of been thinking about that, playing it over, what that must have been like in my mind once I knew it was really happening.
Yeah, when I reflect on it, it just shows how lucky I was and how it makes me feel incredibly grateful. It's not necessarily a standard procedure for working with an IP. There's lots of different ways those conversations can go. So all I can do is, when I think about that, is just be thankful to the team at Abrams, the team at Nickelodeon, Mike, Brian, everyone, for just that's a huge confluence of factors that led to this.
I mean, I would say without you writing a tremendously awesome first novel, probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You better take some credit.
Nancy, where did you grow up? How did acting also spin off into award-winning audiobook narrations? How did all this happen for you?
So I was born and raised in West Virginia, actually. Strange tidbit. And I got into theater when I was in middle school. Did like the whole Pinocchio, it's the cat. It was like, all this really great, thriving children's theater community, which is kind of strange, I guess. People have differing concepts of what West Virginia is like, but actually, it's kind of cultured in Charleston, where I grew up. And so I loved it. And when I went to college, I knew as an Asian kid that I really wasn't supposed to be studying the arts or theater or anything. So that was not possible. So I just went into Asian studies, and I moved abroad and lived in China. I was telling Dante, because he was just there, right?
Yes.
In China. Getting married, apparently.
Getting married in China, yes.
Oh my gosh, very dreamy. So I worked abroad, and I was in business, actually. I was in consulting right after college. And it was miserable. I just had to leave. And when I did, I got to come back to New York, and I went to theater school. I was at the neighborhood playhouse, and then I did the whole New York thing. It was intense. Yeah, it was very intense. I started doing audiobooks kind of during that period of time. And it was just something you fell into, it was kind of 15 years ago, maybe. And they were not many audiobooks at all. Was only doing a few books per year in the beginning because it was such a small industry. And then I actually left New York and I left acting. And strangely, I went to get a master's degree in human rights because I wanted to go back to school. And I did that
Amazing.
in Italy. Yeah, in Italy and in Thailand. So I left the country and I
Wow.
totally broke my identity with acting in New York. And I got a call from my producer just like a month in. He's like, hey, we have the next book in your series. Can you come in to record this? And I was like, I'm in Italy. He said, oh, well, can you find a studio there? So I recorded this book in Florence and I found
Nice.
this great studio. It was so incredible to start
You're living
like
the life,
recording
Nancy.
abroad.
You're living the life. You're living that life.
And then I did another book in Switzerland. I was in Geneva doing my, working at the UN for a hot minute. And then I did the rest of my schooling in Thailand. And then I just continued to do like a tiny trickle of books from producers that had been hiring me before,
Wow.
but I wasn't really doing it. So that's what kept my foot in it, I suppose, because you can do it anywhere, and they were professional studios. It was kind of the most amazing thing. And I
You
kind of do
sound
that
like
now
an
again.
international woman of mystery. You're out in the
Yeah.
world doing all kinds of stuff.
She
You're
sends
working
me
for
photos
the
of these amazing
UN, and then I'm
locales.
doing then I'm gonna do an audio book. Then I don't know what's going on.
I'm working with refugees. No, I'm an activist. I got to do my
Ugh.
thesis.
Activists. What?
I
I know.
know. It's weird. I kind of just tried to escape. And I don't actually live in the States so much anymore. When we both left Boulder at the same time, we started traveling after COVID. So I'm still recording abroad now, kind of. Yeah. I was just in Cape Town and in Thailand. And I did Christian's book, this last one, in Thailand with my friends from 10 years ago, like
Wow.
the studio that I did books with a long time ago. So that was in Thailand with this awesome group of people.
I mean, we already knew how outclassed we were on this one, Dante, but we didn't even know the extent to which we were outclassed by both of these
We're
people.
talking about books. First and foremost, we're talking about books right now.
Yeah.
But I've read the first. I mean, I read the 2 Kyoshi books, and I read the first Yangchen book, and the latest Yangchen book just came out, so I'm about to start that. And when I say I read them,
Uh-huh.
I meant I listened to them
Same.
on audio. So I listened to
Same.
you, Nancy. So, but they're
Oh my
unabridged, so
God.
I really felt like I read them.
You could say
You feel
Oh, yeah.
embarrassed
Yeah.
for listening and not being a reader anymore? Do you guys still like feel a little like,
I mean,
should?
I know.
I don't
the
think anyone
problem
should
is-
feel guilty about listening to an audiobook. It's fantastic to have have a teammate and a partner on a book format. So
No, it
no
is
one should-
great.
No, but people
They're-
still do kind of be like,
Yeah,
is
well,
that
I
considered
know. They're
good?
like, did
But I
you
don't
read
think
it
that's
or did you listen to it? I'm like, I listened to the unabridged
Yeah.
version of the book. What I would like to do is then buy the book and put it on my shelf to let people know that
Mhm.
it all counts.
Yeah. That's
From,
really
from my
important.
opinion as an
Like,
author,
can you
Totally.
look
it all
into my
counts.
Audible
Yeah.
and see all the things I've read this year?
Yeah. No, same, except for I don't say read. I just say I listen to them as audiobooks so that I then don't have to defend myself later when someone calls me on it. But no, just while we're talking about it though, Nancy, like to me, having done some, certainly not this amazing sort of stable of books that you have done and continue to do, but it's just such an intimate form of acting. And
Yeah.
it's this very particular kind of responsibility to the author, having the sole voice of the story, which then very often contains a multitude of voices within that voice. So it's just very dense and
Crazy.
also just sensitive for me in a way that, getting a role and doing something, there's a whole village that it takes to make a cartoon or to make a TV show or what have you. And it just feels so
Right.
one-on-one to be given that responsibility. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. It is such a different medium. When I started doing it, it was incredible. You got to play every part.
Yeah.
For someone like me or anybody that's, we're all kind of boxed in as actors, but particularly, being Asian and small in stature, it's hard to get to do great work. And when you are in the booth and you get great literature, especially, it's such a joy. It's so satisfying. You have to create the entire story, and it is really different. It's a different medium. It's a different set of skills. You're working technically. It's long form So it's quite exhausting,
Yeah.
and you have to do a lot of research. And if you're lucky, you get to work with an author or a director.
Yeah, we got to. That's the thing is, like, we got to talk a little bit about how the voices would end up being, and do a little like
Wow.
mini direction. I remember we were might have been a restaurant, but we were listening to audio clips of Kyoshi, and I was like telling Nancy, "You gotta
Totally.
sound like you're 7 feet tall. Like you gotta
Yeah.
like, you
I'm
gotta
like,
like."
oh,
I didn't
big,
realize
like-
she was that tall when
Oh,
I
God.
when I was
And then-
listening to the when I was listening to the book. I didn't realize she was that tall till you were talking.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and we were like going over the voice.
I was
of
like,
Andy, and
what is in your head? And he's just like, okay, here's some clips. Boom, da boom. I was like, the funnest one for me was Lao Ge, and he's like, here's Boomy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can do Lao Ge, like some crazy, strange bender. And, I got some Azula clips, and we were talking about like so many of the characters were just, everything had, the source material is so rich, and I geeked out on everything. And I started getting really, I don't know, just inspired, and watched everything and just went down the rabbit hole. It was so much fun to work on these voices, and for him to actually give me, his understanding, and answer any question that I had about it, and run things by him, in fact,
Christian, I mean, you alluded to it before, but what was your relationship to the Avatarverse before your publishers Abrams came to you with the question that ultimately led to you writing it? What, like, how were you a fan? How well did you know everything?
Yeah,
Or
I was
into
I was definitely a huge fan of the shows. They were already one of my favorite pieces, two of my favorite pieces of media. Like, I tell the story in like one of the forewords of the books where there was like a time where I tried to where I thought I might have wanted to be a TV writer, and like searching online, there's like, how do you become a TV writer? They're like, first write a spec script for a show that you like. I wrote like a spec script, I think, for Avatar. I can't find it anymore, which is really sad. I would like to see
Oh wow.
what it
I
was
hope
like.
I hope it turns up somewhere, and you're
Was
like,
Zuko
wait a
in there?
minute.
Was Zuko there?
Uh-oh.
No, it was about Sokka, and it was about.
Of course,
Sokka.
it was about Sokka. Of course,
Was
it was about Sokka.
Everyone
It
loves
was about
Sokka.
Sokka feeling bad he wasn't a bender, and this was before I had watched season 3. I don't know whether it predated
Sokka's master.
Yeah, I don't know whether it actually predated Sokka's master, but it was definitely before I had watched Sokka's master. But like the take with that was like basically trying to turn him into like Batman, where he'd be like using gizmos to make it to account for it. And then like
Yes,
I
of
think the fighting
course.
style I wanted to make Sokka specialize in was Wing Chun. Like he would be like there would be something like he'd be like in a crowd, and like something you'd have to fight. So there was like very obvious references to Wing Chun. That's what.
He's
So
so
that's
specific.
like the extent of like how much of a fan I was. I was like, well, like maybe I want to be a TV writer, and like what show would I pick? So that, and it didn't never manifested, and then I don't remember what happened after that.
Someone say it did
then
manifest.
The passive,
I would
guess
say
it
so.
manifest.
Yeah.
It totally manifested.
that's actually true. Yeah, that's
It did manifest.
quite true.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Jean Yang on the podcast, I think it was last season, and I feel like I read just a mention you were also very aware of him. I don't know if you guys are friends, but kind of a similar, like, just having the experience of being exposed to Avatar and sort of wondering, like, could I fit into this world? Like, how would this, are you a fan of his? Are you guys friends?
I'm a huge fan of his. I've gotten to speak to him at a couple of panels that we did together, but that's about as much time as I've been able to get with him. But even still, he's just so awesome, and instantly, it makes you feel like a great, like a close, longtime friend. I've geeked out with Faith about Gene when he, when he wasn't there. That happened at New York Comic Con this past one. But yeah, I was a huge fan of his. Read American Born Chinese before I even started writing
So cool.
myself. His influence has probably subconsciously been there from the beginning.
That's such an amazing part of this world, is like you got everybody kind of geeking out on each other, which is essentially what we get to do on the podcast because we are such huge fans. That makes me so happy. But Christian, the process of working with Mike DiMartino, did it start, like, was the first conversation you ever had with him? Like, did you meet him in the circumstances of, oh, hi, everyone approved me to write these books. Like, was that sort of the first, are you like, hey, I'm going to be making a massive contribution to the canon of this world with your help. Let's go. Great to meet you. Hi. Like, what was that like?
It was like meeting like a master and going through all the nervousness and anxiety, but then finding out how awesome and chill they are and how much they can guide you. We discussed ideas. We got to know each other a little bit, and then after the initial meeting, I submitted outlines and proposals for his review and commentary. And then after that, he was intimately involved in reviewing the draft and providing commentary on that as well. So he, observes and guides throughout the whole process, and he does it in with such a deft touch. Like he'll comment at the at the most incisive point with in such minimal but effective terms, where you realize, oh my God, I'm really working with like
a master,
a team leader and a showrunner. Like I don't know that much about TV writing despite my earlier story, but I understand that there's showrunners who can just make the right nudges and course corrections to get you on the right path. And that's what it was like working with him, which is really funny because it's like my outlines that I originally submitted. I almost never follow.
Oh, really?
Did you ask Mike? Did you ever read my spec script, or did it ever come across?
Oh no, I never
your desk?
submitted that. Like I never submitted that. So
there's still time. Again, if you find it, there is still time.
Check this thing I wrote. Check this out.
It's like a really funny process because like he got to see where things stuck to an outline, where things deviated, and provide the feedback. And then on the Yangchen books, I got to do the same thing with both Mike and Brian. But the initial conversations, the end books ended up in very different places.
He wrote a really nice foreword for you on the first Kyoshi book, I think.
Yeah,
Isn't
that was
right?
just
Really
that was
nice.
just an amazing moment. I was so grateful to receive that gift.
Yeah, deserved. Many of us in this conversation have definitely written and submitted and had editors or had feedback from networks and stuff. And even just sending in like our podcast plans to our two dads, when I'm waiting for that to come back, like, even though I've had nothing but positive experiences with them, I'm so worried about letting them down that I always have this like pit in my stomach waiting for those notes to come back. But the way you describe it, it sounds like he does have that skill. Do you have to sort of take a minute and feel on the defense, like, oh, I'm going to take this personally, and then the next time I read the feedback, I won't take it personally, and I'll realize how helpful it is? Like, do you have that sort of same insecurity that I have?
You're describing the exact thing that almost every writer goes through, no matter who they're talking to, and it happens every time. And the way to get through it is basically the slow reality creeping in that your editors and mentors are just such wonderful and skilled people, and they're totally on your side. So it's that fight with yourself and the anxiety of like, trying to deal with the feedback before realizing that, there's whole teams of folks who are pushing you to be the best that you can be. And it doesn't matter. Next book, same anxiety, same fears, same thing will happen again, but the same result will happen. All those folks who are helping you thrive will also be there for you.
Nancy, and you alluded to before also that you kind of went and took a deep dive into the Avatarverse, but before you kind of signed on to the gig, did you have a relationship with Avatar? Did you know about, was it in your peripheral?
I asked Krishna, I was like, wait a minute, what Avatar is this? And he told me, I was like,
right.
Yeah, I was like, the blue one was there, when
exactly.
was this? And I was like, yes, I remember, because this was not really my generation. And I was doing theater in New York, and I wasn't a voice actor at all, or, animation person. And then my boyfriend and I, started watching it, and it was insane. I was so moved, actually, by the series. I'm a Miyazaki person. So for already so many years, I had been watching Spirited Away and, Totoro and all of these things. And to find something so culturally relevant to me, it just felt so good. How authentic this show is, how good of a job, Mike and Brian did. And everything was just eye-opening. I was just crying. I don't know, like every, Iroh, all of the themes, everything being Asian.
Right.
It was so important to me.
And it came out of America, and we're Americans. Like, how crazy is that?
I was so impressed with how authentic everything was too. It is crazy. I mean, as Asian Americans, right? This is the whole thing about representation, own voices, and finding places where we exist. I do a lot of this kind of BIPOC stuff and kind of speak on some panels sometimes for narrators and own voices types of work. But just having that available is so huge. It didn't exist at all. We weren't seeing ourselves. And I'm saying, people, American kids that are white or not Asian, are looking at this stuff and totally accepting it. There's no question about, why are they Asian? Or what is this? Or why are they coming from this country? And so I think that with race, we kind of forget that the next generation brings a different level of kind of acceptance, inclusion, anti-racism. And it's just the diversity is insane. I'm just so inspired, and personally, so much with my family and experience is reflected in the kind of cultures and stuff that happens in the Avatar world.
I feel like we didn't really settle down into the comment that you made earlier because it was sort of a passing comment. But the idea that because you're Asian and small in stature, you weren't given the ability to do great work is so heartbreaking. And also just so absurd. Like, you say those words and we all nod like, yeah, that sounds right. And yet we all know that is the weirdest truth ever. Like, nothing about that makes sense. We all know it was true, but it also does not have to make sense. It's not like we're like, yes, and rightly so. You shouldn't have been able to do good work for those two reasons. Like, it's crazy. And we're producing content in a country where like all white content is zero reflection on my upbringing. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, most of us are not living in an America or a world where we're like, yeah, like everything's just vanilla. That's cool. Like, that reflects back what I see. Like, that's just so, it's just hilarious. But to your point, if you put the content in front of young people, or anyone for that matter, but
there's
certainly
no
young
question.
people these days, we're going to accept it because we have been exposed to all of these different cultures, so many of us. And that is a better reflection of some little pieces, bits and pieces of what we're experiencing, or big pieces of what we're experiencing every day. If you need proof that we had a problem and we still have problems, like, just do the math. That's all you got to do. Just some real simple math,
It's also just, I mean, the fact that kids are learning about Eastern philosophy and spirituality. These American kids don't have that concept of Taoism. Maybe Christian and I, for sure, my father grew up, and we had all of the poems, and he was very kind of emotional type of immigrant who came from China and always dreamed of going back. So he was kind of literary himself. And, the ideas of ancestor kind of worship and respect and filial piety, all this stuff that goes on with, Zuko and Iroh. And these things, the chakras, that might be my favorite episode. Well, I have a lot of favorite places. Learning about this.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
All of this martial arts. I'm just talking about all these Asian things that, people wouldn't have been exposed to in a Western audience. That's just like, oh my gosh. And
there's
everyone
so
loves
many
it.
People that are now adults at cons that tell me this film has got them into like their 20-year lifelong study of martial arts, which again comes with all the philosophies. And these are not Asian kids. These are like white kids, black kids, Latino kids. And I'm like looking at them like, wow, this was what brought you to like your life philosophy. And it's amazing that Avatar is a piece of that kind of bringing acceptance and opening, just illuminating the next generation. And I think you're right, Nancy. Like, the next generation does see the world different. It doesn't change the fact that our generation is still dealing with our generational trauma that sometimes we put on them. But we still have to deal with our stuff. But it's already changed.
It's such a global world now. I mean, it's much more culturally open, I suppose. People want to know the histories of other countries, and so it's exciting.
Yeah. One of the wonderful things as like an old head fan is watching folks come in waves, and the Netflix waves, and become fans of the property. That you're really proud to say, like, storytelling wise, themes wise, look how much. Not only is it holding up,
so
it's
classic.
still smashing it.
Yeah.
So it's a great joy to see more and more folks discover the verse.
So what has the reception been like for each of you now that all 4 books are out in the world?
Christian?
It's just been so many things. It's been so fun getting to go to cons to represent the books, but also really really emotional because it's been such a tremendous journey that to get the chance to talk to folks at each different stage and have that reflect what's going on in the kind of like the arc of my engagement with Avatar. Anytime I stop to think about it, I get all choked up inside.
You're on the right place for that. Don't you worry. If I
yeah.
don't cry at least once an episode, something's very wrong. So,
But yeah, to see that folks are just happy with things that the books have brought is just really is just really touching. The reception
So
when I go out and meet folks, it's just being able to connect with people who have been able to connect with something that I've written, and there's nothing more special than that.
So well deserved. Such good writing. Some of the best kind of books that I've ever narrated. They're definitely my favorite. This Christian's the work on this.
Thank you.
It's true.
You've read a lot of books, so I know what that means. It's
he sets things up so
yeah.
perfectly. Things surprise you. Even I've read the book, and you've done an audiobook or 2. I think you were saying before. Like you read the book and then you perform it, and when you're performing it, it hits you so hard. Like every single moment you are in, and you are immersed in the world. You're kind of in this box again. You're creating it, and the moments just hit with Christian's work. All those, and because you've listened to the books, those pivotal parts where it's heart-wrenching. I mean, same with the television series. It's just heart-wrenching and so poignant. I am so privileged to be able to do these, really, and people have loved them. I mean, I think that the reception of the audiobooks is pretty good too.
Oh God, I mean, if you don't
course.
hear that directly, please know that we absolutely hear that at cons, because Dante and I both love talking to fans about all aspects of the Avatarverse. And again, because we have listened to the books, we're right there to talk about it. And again, it goes back to the kind of intimacy of that. Like, it feels like everything you just described, we're experiencing that, and we feel like we have this best friend that we don't even know, but somehow they're now our best friend, carrying us gently through this world and helping us process the emotion that the words are making us feel, because you're feeling them right alongside. So I think, I don't know how like in public you've been about stuff like that, but please know that people are going to like cry and want to hug you as they should.
Tons of fans.
Yeah.
There's like a craft element, which that kind of like spoils the vibe. But like you're talking about the moments of intimacy, like but there's also like the writer's trick of like looking at your work and you're doing a revision, and the rule is make it hurt worse, make it hurt real bad.
Yeah, I mean, there is
like
some heavier
wrenching.
things in these books, and I'm thinking
Shocking.
Kyoshi's story that is way heavier, way darker than what I was prepared
Expecting.
for when I was I was
Totally.
like, what's going on here? Let me I had to rewind. I'm like, hold on a second. Are they saying what I
just
think
happened?
they're saying? What's
Did that
happening?
just
Foreshadow report. Yeah, for those of you who haven't read,
It's
no,
heavy.
for sure.
Heavy.
For sure.
I feel so bad for Kyoshi. Like, this is, I mean, we fell in love with her in the costume. You see the statue and this, and the thing, and the Kyoshi Wars, and we love Suki. And there's like this beautiful thing with it. And then you read the backstory of what Kyoshi went through.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yeah,
like, why?
breaking.
She's like the most unhappy, she didn't have the great time as the Avatar, as other avatars kind of had. She just had her own dark thing going on. And it's
but she had such important people in her life, and
Team
felt
Avatar
such
for
love,
her.
and I mean, the Christian. That's
Can we talk about that real
team.
quick? Just when I first found out that every Avatar starts having a team, and
Team
and
Avatar.
the glory of each
so
team,
good.
and what I mean, when you see what's going on with
Characters.
Kyoshi's team, and then what you see what's going on with Yang Chen's team, and you see that throughout time, there's a history of other Sokkas, other Katars, other Tops that. And you're like, oh my God, like it's one thing to be a great Avatar, then it's another thing to be like one of the members that, it just, the history of it kind of just clicked in my mind in a way. I was like, oh, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, there's always been, they always need help. You know?
Yeah, that was
Masters.
that was actually one of the themes that Mike said. Like that's like such integral to the franchise. I remember Mike specifically said, "Our journeys aren't taken alone. You know, you have team. You have a team of friends."
Right.
He gave me the space to explore what that team of friends could potentially
Right.
be.
Cool.
They're so good.
You did so
They end up
great.
pretty
I
wacky
know.
in the novels, including a team of like friends that don't even like each other that much. But then
Right.
like each other that much. But that was one of the critical things that he said. Like, you can't really call it an Avatar story if you don't acknowledge the importance that no one is alone in this
Right.
world, and like you're not. This isn't just a story about somebody rejecting connections and
Totally.
rejecting vulnerability and the relationships with other human beings.
Which
So,
totally makes you think of your own life, especially as an actor in Los Angeles, where we're like I feel like all these artists in Los Angeles are going on their own hero's journey. And it makes you think of like who has been your clique and whose cliques you've been in to help them other friends out in their journey. And it's I kind of just all clicks in like, oh yeah, I've had some friends I've been rolling with for like 20 years and we've been through some things. I don't know if I was the Avatar, if they were the Avatar, or what. I don't know what happened.
I found something that you're not gonna like.
Well, it sounds like a sheet of paper, but I guess you're referring to what's on the sheet of paper.
There are prequels. I feel like, probably we've all maybe seen one or two or read one or two or thought about stuff where you can feel the reverse engineeredness of the story that comes before the story that we all already know. And that's a really hard thing to get right. And I have nothing but respect for anybody who's tasked with that. For me, my experience with your books is like it could never have been any other way. Like there's no part, I accept it whole cloth. There's no part of me that's like, oh, so Christian made the decision to da-da-da. Like it feels like you unearthed the stones in the mountain, and we're like, okay, this already existed. I'm just translating it. I'm the vessel, like it's coming through me. And that's not what it is. You created those. And obviously, you had your feedback and your help from Mike, but to me, it feels like you're just doing what it only could have ever been. And I think, to me, I hope that feels like a compliment, because that's, it just never, it just doesn't feel like, I'm like, of course that's Kyoshi's story. It was always Kyoshi's story. It's like, actually, this didn't exist before. So great job.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it comes down to how deep and rich the world building is in both shows. The fact that there's so many internally consistent and logical elements that play off each other in all the creative choices that were made, and also being able to see a transition between generations and being lucky to see how the universe evolves from one iteration to the other, from Aang to Korra. That helps kind of like get a pattern in mind. So if like you see numbers and you can decipher the pattern, if you can decipher it going forward, you can also, it's an easier time deciphering it going backward as well. So all of that comes down to how much care and love was put into both of the original works. There's also just enough wiggle room between eras to understand, like, the passage of time kind of can smooth over a lot of things or create a lot of twists that you wouldn't expect. But because of the passage of time, and we're talking about things from a historical perspective, it's easier for things to make sense in that way. So like it was done through a lot of useful help and a little bit of like you have an out here with the passage of history, especially with Kyoshi, because that's a lot of time passing where I could just kind of say like,
yeah, true.
Something changed in that 200 years. So
Works for me.
True.
Works for me. So we've talked about kind of how you built out the canon. Like, what was the historical non-Avatar research like, Christian, as you are kind of dipping in and out of eras that, we understand from the Avatarverse, like mimic our reality, but not necessarily entirely? Like, what's the world building like from just our real history versus like the Avatarverse's history, with carts and cars and, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I feel like it's less about doing a project specific tackling of history. I mean, yes, there is definitely a good percentage of doing specific research into a subject that is relevant for the particular project you want to tackle or the initial idea that you're brainstorming. But there's also an ongoing background amount of just showing interest and curiosity in all sorts of histories, and that can be helpful if you just keep reading and reading and reading, even when you're not working on any one particular project. It can lay the groundwork for something that becomes a seed that you do go deep on a deep dive. Kyoshi's story, there are elements that I brought in from just being curious about the various rebellions that happened in various Chinese dynasties. For Yangchen's era, there's a lot of just already reading that I've been doing about the Cold War and the intelligence gathering situations that happened during that time, and also the Kohong system in China and the restricted trade with the West that was happening during a specific era in time, and what logistics systems they set up. Those are things that like kind of had just like a passing interest in, and there's other areas of history and other areas of the world that I've just kind of try to maintain a background level of reading in, and it pays off when it comes to time to go deep on a specific project.
It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
amazing.
You do the history, but the whole Avatarverse seem to like kind of talk about history, but also in a weird like Simpsons way, foreshadow and be so poignant for events that came long after we did the show, which is phenomenal. Now the 4 books are out. Do you have a favorite book? Is there a favorite book amongst the 4 books out, and why? If so, why? Like what?
It's a tough
Please
one.
pick
Yeah.
a child. Love a child
Pick
more than your
one.
other 3 children, guys.
This is terrible.
It's a terrible question.
for
It's
you
a
to
terrible
ask.
question.
Yeah, especially
You
because
don't
some
have
of them
to
are
have an
younger
answer.
than others.
You don't
Some
have
books
to have
are,
an answer.
yeah, like it's
Go
hard to
get
say.
that new Yangchen book. Get the new one. That's the best.
I mean,
It is
yeah, I mean, yes,
excellent.
that's the one
It's
that just came out. It's on for sale.
Get the
Yes.
latest
It's
book. It's
excellent.
the best.
It really pulls things.
Oh, my favorite book is the box set, available at fine retailers.
Oh,
well played.
There you go. Well, I can talk about why it's hard to pick a favorite, because I think
Yeah.
I feel like they reflect different arcs and where I was as a career author.
Mm.
With Kyoshi, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing at the time, so I just kind of bludgeoned my way through, and the end results turned out to be popular. So that mirrors what I was feeling. With Yangchen, I felt like I knew too much. I'd learned too much. And I was beset with anxiety on like what is the correct step forward when anything could be, could lead to problems or success. So what they were going through in each of their books reflects probably what I was going through in my mind. So that is why I cannot pick a favorite to answer your question.
I'm going to say the first Kyoshi book, because everything was so impressive to me, and being able to do that, the writing and being introduced to everything so powerfully.
My product manager at Day Job Hat says that's the best one to pick because that's the top of the funnel. Maximize the top of the funnel to get to maximize
There you go.
Just
there you
start
go.
at the
Flow
beginning.
to the end.
Can I say,
You
as
can't stop after that.
As a citizen of the Fire Nation, that it's great. We got these waterbender avatars. We have an Earth Kingdom avatar, of course. 2 air nomads now. Christian,
Calm down.
anybody? I don't know. Can we get a little Fire Nation avatar?
Love.
Have
campaigns.
I got
Love.
news for you? Which I'm pretty sure I'm clear to talk about this.
Uh-oh.
I will talk about it at any given opportunity. We can look forward to a book, The Reckoning of Roku by Abrams.
Let's go.
In July 2024,
Here it
written
is.
by
Nation.
award-winning Filipino author Randy Rubai. Author
What
of
are we
the same
talking
novel.
about
Mic
right
drop.
now?
Mic
We're
drop.
melting faces from the Fire Nation right now. Good folks out there in the Fire Nation. It's coming for you.
Fire Nation will be.
We finally get to hear about a fire. I mean, we know Roku. We love Roku. We haven't got enough Roku. We know, we understand it's a problematic situation going on, but let's find out what's going on. Let's get the details of what's going on.
Yeah.
Randy,
We'll get
oh my gosh, if
there.
you haven't checked out Randy's works, he is literally an award-winning author. He is one of the best voices in YA at the moment. When I heard that he was going to be taking on Roku, I was so excited. I cannot wait
It's phenomenal.
for July. Like I'm probably gonna try, I don't know, just figure out some back channel way to read it.
I was going
I
to
don't know.
say,
I'm too excited for
a
this.
man was caught sneaking into
Awesome.
a fellow author's house last night, arrested for sticking
Stealing a
a
manuscript.
manuscript under his shirt.
You stole their waterbending scroll.
I prefer to think of it as high-risk trading.
Yeah.
It's like the meme of the guy pulling out the gate, like, Randy!
Exactly. Exactly. You know, right now in our chronology, we are living very much in book 3. Team Avatar is embedded in the Fire Nation. So I'm just going to start with asking if you have favorite characters in Avatar: The Last Airbender, because Christian, I have heard that you and Faith Erin Hicks share love for a common character. Just going to go ahead and lift up my shirt
Looks
just in
like the
case
greatest of all
I
time.
happen to pick the right shirt to wear. There's a little someone with a headband with little palms on it sitting on a badger mole.
Oh, yes, Toph. I've gone on record as Toph as being one of my favorite characters. She is who she is. It's something I envy.
Yeah.
Boy,
I agree.
It's when you see somebody who's figured themselves out to that degree, we can only look on in awe.
What about you, Nancy? Favorite
Oh gosh.
character
Who
in the
would I say?
Avatar series, the television
Well,
series?
I think that Uncle Iroh just gripped my heart somehow. I guess I
Yes.
suppose I feel there's like a connection to my dad or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe like every episode with him had such wisdom and it brought it home.
Right.
I mean, obviously, Aang and Katara. I mean, the whole group is incredible for all of the things that they do. And Zuko, oh my God, everybody loves Zuko so much.
He's great,
such a
but
sexy
there's no
boy,
shame in Uncle. There's no
anger.
shame in saying Uncle Iroh. I mean, we all aspire to be Uncle Iroh.
I mean, I hadn't thought of that question. I haven't been asked that, honestly. So I guess I was like picking not one of the typical ones, but
Right.
I suppose.
But Fire Nation nonetheless.
Yeah,
Iroh's
the
huge.
arc that
He's
that
huge
Zuko
for
goes
us.
through with his uncle,
Yeah.
and the arc you go through is incredible. It's super moving.
And look,
Mako,
for the people
Mako.
watching, for people
Mako.
watching us, it's Nancy is dressed kind of Fire Nation, and Christian's dressed kind of Earth Kingdom. What's going on here?
We don't even know if that's we don't know if that's
know.
going to be a hint to what type of bender they are. So don't even
We don't
try
know,
to get
but it
them
just
to
happened. It
tell
just
it. Yeah,
happened.
it
It
could
just
have just been
happened
a
today.
coincidence. It could have just been a coincidence. Christian, you have called out a couple of favorite episodes before. Have they changed, or are they the same two that I read about?
They might be the same two. The two that I'm thinking of are Avatar Day and The Great
okay.
Divide. And the great,
People love the Great Divide.
Okay, I'll tell you why.
It's
Divide.
controversial.
There's stories on both.
What is it?
So first off, Avatar Day, because obviously my Avatar career wouldn't exist without that episode.
Yeah,
That's where
Kyoshi's
we,
big
get
feet.
introduced to Kyoshi. That's where we get her her character defining moments where there was so much to latch onto at that moment to see how she ended up as an adult and to develop a story of how she got there and how she evolved to that point.
Right.
So that is the foundation of Kyoshi, and that's a little bit more obvious. What folks don't know is that the Great Divide is actually the foundation of Yangchen's character. First off, the Great Divide introduces the tribe that one of Kyoshi's main villains is from, the Nanjun tribe. But it also forms how forms how Yang Chen approaches her avatarhood, because the way that Aang resolves the conflict through his trickster status. I've heard you guys mention that before, but he essentially lies to try to for the sake of peace. So I was thinking about this a lot for Yang Chen. I was thinking like, okay, somebody who is air nomad principled says like, guys, peace is the best option. But what happens if everyone just says like, no, we want to keep fighting. We know who you are and we don't care. We're going to keep fighting. What does a pacifist have in their arsenal to go with at that point? And I was like, they could do it. They could lie. They could use intelligence. They could use spy. They could use leverage, which is a nice word for what Yang Chen does in order to save as many lives in a non-violent, non-confrontational way possible. So then that is the genesis of like, Yang Chen could be a spy master because she's still pacifist, but she needs to get stuff done. What do you do if no one listens to you? It takes the high road. You got to figure out another way. So the Great Divide.
Great Divide
is the formulation of Yang Chen's character.
That's some luck you knew Jin Wei and Wei Jin.
You could call it luck, or you could call it lying.
What?
I made the whole thing up.
You did not.
I mean,
We've had
it
a
makes so much
great
sense now that you're saying
conversations
it, but
about
I
the
don't
Great
remember
Divide.
knowing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out
I've
to
never said that
Giancarlo
before.
Volpe. Giancarlo Volpe, the director
Uh-huh.
of The Great Divide,
Mhm.
which, actually on the list throughout the years has been the lowest ranked episode in all of the Avatar, the first series. But I actually love The Great
I
Divide
love
too.
it.
I love it too. I love
For
it
the
too.
art too. I love the art styles that are
Yeah.
going on. It was very,
They
very cool.
experimented
I
in
don't.
that one.
I think no one liked the fact that he lied. My thing is, I think because he lies at the end, everyone kind of feels.
I incorporated this theme, and I may have butchered it, so I apologize if I messed up the concept and disrespect by it. But like,
No.
there's a concept in Buddhism, the skillful means. So it's like you do something that's not quite the truth, but gets people closer to the truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The story
Sure.
of the man trying to save his children from the burning house. It is an example of that. There's an element of that gets in Yangchen, and so again, I'm nowhere near as well as learned as I should be. So I apologize if I got the concept wrong, but there's an element of that.
I love this
So.
because, again, we have shown so much love for The Great Divide on this podcast. It got 2 episodes, which we sort of did to
I
spite
know.
everyone. Like, oh, is it filler? I'm sorry. We're going to give it 2 whole episodes on the
That's
podcast.
how I feel.
And now you have tied it into the canon so tightly and
Yangchen.
importantly.
I'm now going to take.
No one
I got to read
ever
the
call it
second
filler,
book with
ever.
like that in my mind.
Ever.
There's all these little
The
secrets.
Great Divide.
Yeah.
Oh, Nancy, what about you? Favorite episode?
The whole Appa storyline just, I don't know,
don't
this
talk
just
about it.
gripped me.
You're gonna make Varney cry. You're gonna make Varney cry.
I was crying when I was, I wanted to watch it the next night. When are they going to find him? What's going to happen? Yeah, I know. So the library I was just not even expecting that. And then to be gone for so long and watching him go, I don't know, I'm such a softie. This is what I'm thinking about. Doesn't he go and to the air temple and find the guru? And he
Yeah,
helps
we got
him.
Appa's Lost Days. Appa's Lost
Yes,
Days.
Appa's Lost Days. I don't know. Somehow these kind of themes, they get me.
Oh,
And then
same.
yeah,
Understandable.
and then learning about the chakras as well. That I
Yeah.
thought was amazing. That I was blown away. I'm like, you're introducing this to kids. I remember learning that he can't go to the very top chakra. There's 7,
Right.
starting with earth, and then water and fire and heart and voice, ajna, and then this he's not allowed. He refuses to let go of attachment.
Right.
Aang refuses to let go of attachment.
Right.
And the guru says, wait, you can't reach enlightenment this way. You need to know how to get into the avatar state. But the fact of the matter is, and Yangchen says it, is that you're not allowed to go there because you're the avatar and you must be attached to the world. So you're not able to be someone that's just completely enlightened. And
the bodhisattva theme.
Yes,
they're not.
exactly.
The avatar isn't a Buddha. They're a bodhisattva. They stay connected to the world to try to teach and guide, even though they could peace out and get to enlightenment. They don't do that.
When I put that together, I was like, because I study yoga and Buddhism, pretty seriously with my Ashtanga practice, but this really blew me away. Kind of understanding and all of these kind of Taoist principles and of nature and the spirit world are woven deeply into the core of this universe, and to be able to teach that to kids in such a clean way, it's so beautiful.
And I think it's relatable for those folks who too maybe are, were raised with a different theology, but just the sort, I guess, the idea of having a person who's a bridge to the divine in some way. Also bearing the burden of like the pain of what it feels like to be a human being is the sort of thing that, I think a lot of different cultures are attracted to for very good reason. To me, that's the best version, but it's not a competition. But I agree with you. So Christian, if you could bring a character from book 3, which is where we are right now, into Kyoshi's time, even if it's just for like a little snippet of time, is there a character that we know of in book 3? It could be one of our regulars. Is there anybody that would enjoy Kyoshi's era, or that you think Kyoshi could benefit from hanging out with for a day or something?
I have two. One would be Ty Lee, because she could hang out with vibe with air nomads, and she'd be a good influence on Kyoshi. But the other one might be Azula, because then she could see what
Oh.
a Fire Nation that's not not in their imperialistic phase might look like. The family that I wrote into Kyoshi's time can manage exceptional, talented people very well and get them on the right path. So like Azula under that tutelage, again, like Rangi is like very close to Azula by intention.
Yeah.
But somebody who can provide that type of guidance for somebody who is an exceptional talent and it was always like a nifty concept in my head. So
I love that. People always
Amazing.
talk about redemption for
Good
Azula
answer.
and what could have gone differently, and that is the best
In a
answer I
in a
could possibly
multiverse.
imagine.
Only in a
Yeah.
multiverse, huh? Only in a multiverse.
Yes.
Nancy, is there a character in book 3 you think it would be fun, say in an alternate universe, to voice?
Everybody did such a great
I know.
job with everything. I
You
can't
have
say
to
something
pretend
like that.
that's wiped. You have to pretend like this is
Yeah,
an
like,
alternate
it's a
universe.
new
and
cast,
it's like the
new cast.
Spideyverse. Like just everything sort of fits together atomically differently. So you're going to take it on, and it's a brand new thing. There never was anybody else voicing it in this universe.
Azula's arc is so intense.
Yeah.
Like
So
this is,
What a great character.
oh my gosh. And Gray was phenomenal. And like the control that she had in all those different moments.
I'll be able to tell if you're lying.
Are you sure? I'm a pretty good liar. I am a 400-foot tall purple platypus bear with pink horns and silver wings.
Okay, you're good, I admit it.
Okay, well, I'm talking about, I would like to do it, but if I did it, I wouldn't be able to do it as well as she does. But to be able to play those scenes and kind of like bring it really down and then get seriously evil and then have these when she breaks and she goes crazy and this kind of thing. Oh my gosh. And Zuko has
I'm
a
down
lot of
for
these.
that.
Zuko has a lot of these moments too. It's insane how rude you are in the beginning. Oh, all the way through here and there. What nasty things you say. It's incredible. I'm just like,
petulant
you said that?
little prince.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
uncle. Yeah, it's just like,
Especially in an Asian
Did you say that?
family.
Did you say
In
that?
an Asian family,
That's what I'm saying.
you're not saying
Youngest-
this to your uncles.
You
Like,
just
it's
said
not
that.
good. This is not good.
What else would I expect to hear from the laziest man in the Fire Nation?
They say that to each other. They say that. I mean, actually, in Chinese families, they get kind of like volatile. So maybe they say this kind of stuff. But from a child to an elder,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
y'all,
not
you
watch
really.
out.
siblings, these
You're in
siblings
trouble.
are nasty.
Yeah. Favorite hybrid animal? Do you have one? Doesn't have to be the favorite, but do you have a favorite hybrid animal?
Well, I said Appa, right? And Pung Pung. Okay, Pung Pung is the bison that Kyoshi has, and
Yes.
Kelsang, her teacher, and Pung Pung has less feet. Is this right?
No, that's Yin Yang.
Yin
That's,
Yang, okay.
Yin Yang is
This is-
Jinpa's bison who has
Okay, this is
That's
Yin
5
Yang
feet,
Chen.
seriously.
There's yeah. So Pung Pung and Appa, of course, they're just so adorable. But
yes.
to be honest, I like Pabu.
I know, I love Pabu too.
Oh my god, Pabu, he's
Pabu's
so
so
cute.
cute.
He just
Yeah.
ends up there with Bowen.
Yeah.
He's so adorable. And these little red
Love.
pandas.
Love.
Yeah, so,
love,
I
love,
mean-
love.
I love the weirdness of mono animals. And I also love knowledge seekers. So Kyoshi's animal companion, which is the fox, I'm confirming it at the end, is
Okay.
I have a special appreciation for.
Yes.
But also, I love sky bisons because logistically, when you're trying to write the story, you almost can't have one without a sky bison because
Yeah.
it takes too
Gotta get
long for people
places.
to get from
Takes
place
too
to
long.
place.
We
Well, how
gotta
you gonna do
get
it?
places.
Yeah.
I tried to outline something where Kyoshi didn't have access to sky bison.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't really work all that
It's
well.
hard.
And my favorite sky bison is New Gen, Yangchen's bison, because New Gen, I never said this before, but New Gen is kind of modeled off of Swiftwind from Princess Shira, Netflix's Shira. And Swiftwind is
my
kind of like
gosh.
Swiftwind is kind of like a glory hound and kind of a little bit vain. So like I tried to incorporate elements of New Gen is kind of like I'm awesome, I'm Yangchen's bison, and like so
genius.
I don't know how much of it got through, but that was kind of like my inspiration for New Gen. And
you
then
heard it here
Flying
first.
bisons.
Because
Sky
Appa's a pretty
sky
humble.
bisons are
Appa's a pretty
amazing.
humble bison. Appa's a
Yes.
super humble bison.
yeah.
How
But
cute
New
is
Gen
it?
is like a pet who thinks they're the best and
Yeah,
is
a little-
spoiled.
It seems
Little
like a
flamboyant
cop out just to say
bison.
sky bisons, but it's sky bisons. The first time I saw it, I was like, Miyazaki, I'm like, it's a Totoro and the cat boss and everything. I was just like, it just nailed my heart right away. So Sky
It's half
Bisons, how do you
bison
go
and half
wrong
manatee.
flying around?
Half
Really?
manatee. Yeah.
You're
It's
still,
half manatee.
you're still
part.
wowed
Manatee.
by
The
it
tail.
all these years later. I love it.
I know.
We found somebody who did.
I
Our
got
first
confused.
episode,
Dude.
we found out that the sky bison, because I was like, what animal hybrid is it? And they're like, and we found out it's a bison and a manatee. And then what I
Manatees
did
don't
is
have fur.
no, but I
That's where the bison comes
Googled a
from.
manatee. I Googled a manatee, and literally it was a big manatee in the water. That was Appa. It was the shadow of Appa in the water. And I was like, oh my
Oh my
God.
gosh.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. And then people,
That's
Amazing.
beautiful.
then people tried to
That's a
tell me
good
they knew it.
animal.
They knew that also, but they didn't
They
know that,
didn't.
Varney. These cabbage head didn't
We got
know
a new
that.
one. We got to.
Okay,
teach a
so
new person.
also, like, we're gonna ask you guys, of course, all the cabbage heads out there need to know our juicy question, which is, who do you ship? Who do you guys ship in the Avatar world?
Mhm.
Relationships. Anyone
I
in
have an answer a
particular,
little bit.
canon or non-canon? Christian.
I first want to know if Christian has one.
Yes. What do you got? Do you have a
Do you
ship?
have
I like.
one?
Yeah, you're in the hot seat
I like
first.
Sokka. I like Sokka and Suki due to how well
they're
adjusted
great.
they are as a couple.
Great couple.
And-
Great
yeah.
couple.
That's not a ship.
Adorable.
Great
I love that
You
choice.
can ship
It's-
somebody who's can.
it's
You
ship-
can?
it's
Ship a
a
canon
ship.
couple.
Yeah, you can.
absolutely.
It's that's called what's that
It's
called?
supposed
What's
to be like
Sakasuki?
all in like your
Saki. Saki.
I think it's
or something
Saki,
like that.
right?
your
Yeah.
imagination.
Saki.
I thought shipping was specifically like you have this dream. Fan fiction goes crazy.
I like
it's not being
uncanon ships. Yeah,
written.
uncanon
It's
ships are good.
like
Yeah. So do you have one, Nancy? You must
Harry
have an
Styles and
uncanon
Larry
ship.
Tomlinson. That's what I had a
Hey.
ship. Hey, let's just bring that back from like way back. I actually like Sokka and Yue. Yue.
Yeah.
Of course.
You always get that
course.
name a little wrong. It is
That's
Yue.
rough, buddy.
Yue.
That's definitely.
That's
Yeah.
canon too. Yue.
It is.
Yeah, Yue.
Sokka gets all the
Yue. I've been
girls. Can
saying
I
it
just
wrong.
put that out there?
No. Sokka
gets all
and
the
Yue.
girls.
I say Yue because I speak Chinese, and Yue
Is
means
moon.
moon.
Yeah.
And so if you take it a little slower and send Yue, then that's
Yue.
what it's right.
Yue.
That's how she's called.
Yeah, we always just say Yue. But if we take
Yeah,
the
Yue.
W out, Yue.
It's like Yue, but it's actually like
Yue.
Yue. But that's hard to
Yue.
say if you don't speak Chinese.
I'm going to work on it.
But yeah, it
Yue.
I
just
commit
sounds
to
too
work on it
weird in
through the
English.
podcast.
A lot of words just sound weird in English, too strange for an ear to get. So it's better to kind of ease off of it. But I really
It's
loved
hard.
her. She was so beautiful.
Oh.
That story is heartbreaking.
Fashion icon. She's a
Oh,
fashion icon of the Avatarverse.
Oh, also, he fell in love. I was so beautiful, but she's the moon.
And she's the moon.
Oh,
It's your ex-girlfriend
That's
just
rough,
happens to
buddy.
be the moon.
That's that
That's
whole
rough,
tradition.
buddy. Everywhere you go,
That's
your
rough, buddy.
ex-girlfriend's hanging out just over your shoulder.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Sokka
That's
has
rough,
to
buddy.
carry that
That's
around
the
with him.
roughness of the
Yeah.
whole thing.
I love both of those ships. It's hilarious that they both involve Sokka because that just proves Dante's point that we all are preoccupied with Sokka's love
Sokka
life,
gets
which we
all the
are.
girls.
Oh.
Sokka
No,
gets all the girls.
he's such a favorite. He's such a favorite of mine as well. We got to know, what kind of benders would you be, Christian? Are you giving us the hint with your love of Toph and the shirt that has some green in it, or are you gonna blow our minds right now?
Honestly, it evolved over time because you get as being asked this at cons. Like I said, things have changed. I started with Airbender. I've said that in panel because I was saying at the time I tended to avoid my problems and note-bad situations. So it was a very negative Jing. And then I think at some point I was combustion bending because I was probably going through a phase where I would like things to blow up if I get angry enough at them.
Combustion man.
Combustion
Combustion man.
Yeah, there's definitely realizing how useful earthbending was when I started writing Kyoshi. And then lastly, though, I think where I'm settled on as being older than when I was when I started
mature
is
age.
waterbending for healing. There's nothing better than healing. There's nothing
Good point.
It's what I feel like I need.
Yeah.
having gotten
Self-healing.
older, but it's also what's
Use it on
what gives the
ourselves.
most good to other people as well. So waterbending, healing,
Oh,
it's the
love
best.
I love it.
All right.
Sorry,
that's
Dante.
a good answer.
Nancy.
Nancy.
God, I'm going to talk about yoga again. We talk about these 3 doshas, which are basically like how your nature is, like how somebody's nature is. And it is like fire, water, or air. And you talk about how people are unbalanced. So that's a concept in, yoga, Ayurveda kind of principles. And I've always been, Pitta Vata is fire and air. So we were kind of talking about like, not what would we be, but what are we? You have friends that are like the earth. They're more like slow, and they're earthbenders, and they're kappa. They're very heavy, but they're strong and like, powerful. And then you have like the fire nation. And for your, I don't know, like your personality, it kind of like goes between air and fire for me. So I think that it would be air bending for me because you can fly also. It also makes you a little bit flighty. Whenever you're doing something, you can just kind of like whip away and fly, just take off.
Okay. All right, Varney, before we wrap this episode, will you introduce this special feature of this particular episode?
I will. I will. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. We've already established that we are both huge fans of Christian's novels and Nancy's narration, so much so that we felt like we kind of wished that we could, copy our heroes and have our own audiobook to narrate. And because I'm an idiot and Nancy is a wonderful person, she agreed to narrate a portion of what we will call The Rise of Braving the Elements, with a special foreword by F.C. Yee.
This is F.C. Yee, best-selling author of the Kyoshi and Yangchen Avatar novels. And all I can say about this book is that if you're someone who likes your Avatar content in the meta format with an amateur's hubris, you won't be disappointed by how disappointed you'll be.
Wonderful. Okay, Nancy, take it away.
Excerpt from The Rise of Braving the Elements, written by Janet Varney, narrated by Nancy Wu. Chapter 6, The Quest for Honor. Dante scanned the green room backstage at the Springfield Comic-Con, running his hand through his foxy salt and pepper hair. Although he made sure to give a friendly "what's up" nod to his fellow convention guests, there was no sign of his co-host. Suddenly, an enthusiastic voice behind him rang out, "Hey, buddy!" Before he could even turn to look, Janet bounded around, and in front of him, her soulful blue eyes sparkling. "What do you think, Basco? You ready to show the world we're becoming professors of the Avatarverse?" He finished for her, a smile playing across his ageless Filipino skin. "Exactly!" exclaimed Janet, lifting a hand for a dorky attempt at a high five, which Dante pretended not to see. Undaunted, Janet continued. "Just one thing, though, buddy. You're not going to spend too much time defending the Fire Nation, right?" Dante seemed to avoid meeting Janet's gaze as he stood up a little straighter, his expression taking on a politician's persuasive smile. "There are some good people in the Fire Nation, Varney. Some real good people."
Yay! Nancy gave us so much cred by doing that.
So amazing. I love that.
Why did I write something
my
that's
gosh,
so flattering to you and so insulting to me?
I don't know. I would have
too
definitely
easily.
high-fived you, Varney. I would have definitely high-fived you.
You're the cool
Come
one.
on.
You're the cool one. You can't high five me. You're too busy like taking care of your ageless Filipino skin. Oh, Christian,
I'm
Nancy,
telling you.
thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much.
This is so much fun.
This is amazing. Such a wonderful conversation. Just hearing you do that narration is getting me excited to jump into the latest Yang Chen book
Yes.
and have the Great Divide in my mind while I'm listening to it.
Oh my gosh.
Indeed. Where can we find you? What else can we love of yours? This is your opportunity to share that with everybody and get the word out.
I'm on Instagram, Yee Book Author. It's YEE Book Author, all one word. And I have a mailing list that you can sign up for at fce.com, and that's where you'll hear updates about anything I'm working on.
I'm Nan Wu Reads Aloud is my handle on Instagram and Twitter. And NancyWuVoice.com is my website. And our industry magazine is called Audiophile Magazine for people that are interested in audiobooks and are big listeners. Like, they do so much to present the work we do and give reviews and recommendations all the time, like every week. And so there's also features on different narrators on audiophile.com.
And didn't
So
you
that's where
just
you can
fairly
find us.
recently win yet another award, Nancy?
Yes, the Yangchen book won an Earphones Award. which Audiophile gives out. And I'm so excited because they've never reviewed one of our books before. And I've always thought, oh my gosh, this should, it really needs to be reviewed in this. So I'm super happy, and it'll bring people into the entire, 4-book series. And for a lot of, people who have never even heard of Avatar and that are, more listeners, readers, they will understand what this phenomenon is all about. So yeah, I'm so happy that got the recognition that it did.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations to both of
Congratulations.
you. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
guys so much. What a
We're
wonderful
so
conversation.
happy to meet you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
You're fantastic actors and voices.
Did you know you can hear bonus episodes of our award-winning podcast?
Subscribe to Avatar Braving the Elements Premium on Apple Podcasts for early access, exclusive content, and ad-free listening.
I'm so excited!